couple of hours away from learning the fate of the LA Clippers owner Donald Sterling for allegedly making racist comments. At least that's what we think, because the NBA Commissioner Adam Silver is set to hold a news conference at 2 p.m. Eastern about the racial rant and any kind of punishment that might be expected. But will anything that he can do be enough? Depends on who you ask. Depends on what enough is. Some people want that man's head, literally. Joining me here is CNN commentator Mel Robbins, and also joining me via Skype to talk about the NBA's range of legal possibilities and punishments for Sterling is Michael McCann. He's a legal analyst for Sports Illustrated. All right, Michael, I want to begin with you. First things first, we keep talking about this as all allegations because Mr. Sterling has not confirmed nor denied that that's him on the tape making those repulsive comments. But the NBA can make him do that, can't they?
They can. That's right, Ashleigh. The NBA has the ability to require an owner or an employee of a team to cooperate with the league investigation. One of the key powers of Commissioner Silver is the power to investigate. And if Donald Sterling doesn't comply, he can be sanctioned for that alone, plus the other things.
And by the way, if he doesn't, can the sanction be massive? Or if he refuses to comply, if he refuses to answer the question, is it sort of a limited option for the commissioner in the league?
Well, there are really three types of penalties that the commissioner could use here. One is the fine. The fine would be sort of the least onerous, which probably would attract a lot of criticism. He's worth somewhere in the ballpark of $1.9 billion. A fine ranging from $1 million to $2.5 million for all of us would be the worst thing ever. For him would be probably a drop in the bucket. The next level up would be a suspension, possibly an indefinite suspension or a suspension of some length of time. To me, that's the most likely outcome. And in a suspension, Donald Sterling would be barred from any contact with the Clippers. He wouldn't be able to talk to players, coaches, team personnel. He literally it would almost be akin to a restraining order. He would be excommunicated from his own team. He would still make money during that time, which will certainly attract some criticism. The last possible penalty is to expel him from the league. That, however, would likely trigger a legal issue, specifically a lawsuit, under antitrust law in particular.
And let me bring Mel into this conversation because we finally kind of know some of the actual articles of the Constitution, what they say, what they cover, and what may end up being the bane of that man's existence right now.
Yes.
And the specifics are, those were the generalities, but the specifics are, and let's start with this, the suspensions. Under paragraph 24, I believe that's I, this is something that covers the nebulous, so to speak, stuff that's not super definable, like you cheated, you lied, and we gotcha, that kind of thing. But actually, no, this isn't very serious. This is the $2.5 million fine, and this is the indefinite suspension, correct?
Right, and also that they could suspend draft picks. There's another section. So basically, Silver has two different sections, according to the bylaws that are reported by ESPN, where he can take action. One of them says $2.5 million, suspension of draft picks, and a suspension of Sterling himself. The other one...
Indefinite.
Yes,
Indefinite.
And here's the other one. If he, quote, makes a statement having or designed to have an effect prejudicial or detrimental to the best interest of basketball, he can get a lifetime suspension and a $1 million fine.
But he still can own the team.
Well, this is a question I have for Michael, if he's still with us.
Fire away.
So, Michael, we're all talking about Donald Sterling, but what about happens to Shelley and his son-in-law, Eric, who are also owners of the team? We're all focused on Donald Sterling, and if they bring this action, does it affect the entire ownership or just him as an individual?
Yeah, Mel, it's a great question. My understanding is that any sanction that Donald Sterling faces would be limited to him, as he was the one who committed the wrongdoing. So his wife, Shelley, his son-in-law, others in the family who are active in the organization would be able to continue to run the team.
Okay, so that brings up this whole suspension from being an owner of a franchise, because there are articles that cover that as well. Whether this man is allowed to stay in the club. There are 30 members of that club, owners I should say, and then there is, Adam Silver, the commissioner. It's it's effectively a vote. There's procedure. There's evidentiary procedure.
Yes, there's bylaws under the corporate
But
law
then
under this.
There's
Yes.
a big old vote.
Yes, so basically what's interesting about this, and Michael, if you want to weigh in, what it says according to the bylaws that we saw reported by ESPN, and these are dated from 2005, is that the owners have power as well. The owners could decide that they want to vote him out. And basically, the language is if he fails to fulfill a contractual obligation such that has an effect on the MBAs or the members adversely, my understanding is any single one of the 30 owners, Michael, can initiate a charge. And then Sterling has 5 days to respond, and then the commissioner can hold a hearing within 10 days. And if 3/4 of these owners vote him out, he's out. And if 2/3 vote that they just want to fine him, then he's going to be fined. Is that your understanding as well?
That is my understanding, and my understanding is also that Donald Sterling will likely argue, if that process plays out, that the language that's being quoted was designed for financial impropriety, other financial aspects of running a team, not making racist comments, essentially, that the language wasn't designed for this type of situation. He'll argue that for him to lose his team would be outside the scope of the provision, and he would potentially file a lawsuit over that. So there would be a breach of a contract and then also an antitrust claim. So I think the NBA will tread carefully on this, because I know that there's some concern that the language that's being quoted generally doesn't specifically apply to what he did.
Yeah, I love this fact that the Constitution's requirement has, conduct of business on a reasonable and ethical level. I think you could really argue that in this particular case. P.S., you guys, we haven't even mentioned the leverage that those very strong, articles hold against him to just say, step down, sell the team, don't make us go through this horribly embarrassing thing, because you will lose. Can you just put a pin in it and tell me these are final?
Oh,
He can't
absolutely.
challenge. This is like arbitration.
This is like arbitration.
Done.
Whatever Silver says, we're done.
Yeah, well, whatever Silver says goes, apparently, and at 2 p.m., Mr. Silver is going to speak publicly about this. It might be one of the bigger watch news conferences in a very long time. We're not exactly clear what it is he's going to say, but he's got to say something, because the groundswell is getting bigger and louder. In fact, we're digging even deeper into Donald Sterling and his past as an NBA team owner and as a person. This is not his first run-in with controversy over alleged racism or misogynist comments. We're going to take you into his history, specifically the lawsuits that man's been facing.